Our guest, loewyfirm.com, LOEWY.com. He has been involved in a lot of high-profile cases in Central Texas. And he goes after bad cops. Now, everybody knows that I am not an enemy of the police. I don't follow the George Soros thing to federalize them and say, go shoot the cops. He isn't either. But when police shoot an unarmed guy in the back and he doesn't get in trouble, he's there covering it. Now, the police officer had gotten in trouble, but the judge just dismissed it all and said, no jurisdiction, basically, the feds decide this. Now, whether the cop's good or did the right thing or was bad, we'll talk about that some too. It's a terrible case, a bank robbery, chases some guy that's scared of the cops. I can kind of see why, shoots him in the back. Didn't get in trouble for it so far. And you got a lot of courage, trying to tackle this. And as good as our police departments are in Austin, they still got a lot of problems. There's some, obviously, a lot worse around the country. But that said, for me, the big issue, and when he contacted us, I've been inviting him on lately. He's been too busy, but he called and said, I'll come on now because of this ruling, because this is right up your alley. Here's the headline: How Federal Agents Can Kill Someone and Avoid Prosecution, the Washington Post. And it's this special federal clause. Well, now, local police can just be under a federal umbrella, and if they're playing ball with the feds, a magic wand is waved, and they're above the law. They've done this with asset forfeiture seizure, where they won't let locals keep the money, but if it's done federally, then you can keep it. That makes you federal creatures. So this is very sophisticated. Adam, thanks for coming in.
Good to see you, Alex.
Where should we start, with the case or with the ruling? And in general, I just can't think of just anything bigger than this lately with federalization, and then there's almost no coverage of such an incredible ruling of no local jurisdiction over police. That is quite a statement by a court.
Absolutely. Let me just briefly go through the facts as we know them. This was a case in which there was a bank robbery in the morning by a white guy. About 8 hours later, Larry Jackson, who was African-American, came to the bank. The bank was shut down. The APD officer, Austin Police Department Detective Charles Kleiner, was in the bank doing an investigation. Larry tried to enter the bank. The door was locked. Kleiner comes out and confronts him. Larry runs. Kleiner chases him. Kleiner commandeered a civilian car, literally something out of the 1980s. He forces this older woman to drive him, chasing Larry. He then gets Larry under a bridge.
And by the way, this has all been admitted.
It's all been admitted, under oath. Under a bridge, Kleiner takes his gun out, starts striking Larry in the head, and the forensic evidence clearly shows that Larry was on his hands and knees when Kleiner put the gun to the back of his neck and pulled the trigger. The muzzle of the gun was on Larry's neck. Those are the facts. What Kleiner claimed from the beginning was this was an accident, that he did not mean to shoot Larry Jackson.
Was this a psychotic break, like the guy in San Francisco shoots the black guy in the back and then lies about it?
I think he was in a state of rage. I think he totally flipped out. It was in July of 2013. It was 108 degrees that day. I just think he lost it. He did not want this guy running from him. And he completely lost it, and I believe murdered him. I think the evidence was overwhelming that this was intentional.
And we're showing video. The guy he chased didn't do anything.
Right, and under oath, Kleiner admitted that Larry Jackson was not a threat, that Larry Jackson did not pose a danger to him. That is under oath testimony from federal court.
Wow.
And so he was indicted for manslaughter. And then, due to a very arcane law, literally from the 1800s, called Supremacy Clause immunity, his lawyers appealed it to federal court, and they claimed that, first of all, Kleiner was a federal agent because he was on a joint task force, which is, he wasn't an FBI agent, he wasn't paid by the federal government, but there's all these joint task forces now in which the feds use local police officers and simply designate them as a federal agent for purposes of a task force.
And this is a kill somebody, get out of jail free card now.
Right, and so because he was a federal officer, he can be entitled to Supremacy Clause immunity, which basically says that a local prosecutor, a state prosecutor, cannot prosecute a federal agent for a criminal act. And we can understand the very serious consequences of that And the consequences
Even
are,
the Washington Post said how federal agents can kill someone and avoid prosecution.
right. So you've created
Lon Horiuchi.
Right. You've created a system. The case they're relying on, one of them, is this terrible situation in Ruby Ridge from 1992, which many of your viewers would know very well, which Randy Weaver and his wife, specifically his wife, was executed by a sniper from the federal government, Lon Horiuchi. He was prosecuted for manslaughter, and he too had his case dismissed under supremacy clause.
And he shot her with a baby in her arms and bragged about it.
Right. It was
He's a fruitcake.
It was a horrendous moment. And so by extending it now to local law enforcement officials who can claim federal immunity, you've created a situation in which local government cannot prosecute police officers who can claim federal status. And it's the continuing federalization of law enforcement, something you, Alex, have talked about a lot. And the problem here is this. People would say, oh, well, the federal government can prosecute these guys. Federal prosecutors do not prosecute state crimes in general. Federal prosecutors are focused.
So they're putting him into a phantom zone where the locals can't charge him and the feds can't. This is 007 license to kill.
It's a phantom zone is a great way to describe it. You could look at it also as a legal vacuum in which they're operating in this world in which the state can't prosecute them.
It's a dead zone.
The feds will not prosecute them. So you have a case here in which this guy is going to get away with manslaughter. He's not.
And again, I'm not out to get cops in general because we got bigger issues with corrupt government. But at the same time, this is what's causing all the anger that other people are politicizing and using to, again, the federal level, demonize the police, then federalize them, force cops to all go on task forces to then get immunity. You can see the takeover plan.
Absolutely.